Karen or Nicole, I just saw from Blythe Bailey, he will be on the in the committee meeting on phone, and he's not sure how he'll be identified, but it could be John Bailey or the number 802-9819.
Nicole, as soon as you set it back to me, I will start our meeting. All right, everybody, let's roll. We are live. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Tuesday, January 12th, City Council agenda session. Go ahead and call this meeting to order. Have approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Motion in a second. Standing no opposition. Meetings will stand as approved. All right, ordinances on final reading. We have a planning item in District 1. Is there anybody that has anything further on this item? If not, we will move down to our first readings.
Yes, I do.
Councilwoman Burrs, please.
Item E, I'm going to be asking for a deferral on that for 1 week.
Very well, ma'am. Councilman Ledford, these have all been read into the record as planning items. Would you like to go ahead and have them read anyways in this meeting?
No, sir. I think we're okay. They've been read once, even though I know Karen is very excited to do that. I hate to take that away from her, but we have a lot of to cover today in committee.
Yeah, very well. If we must skip reading every one of them, I guess that is all right. Councilman Gilbert, I see your hand. Do you have a question on one of the planning items, sir?
Yes, sir. D, I'm going to defer that for 1 week, next Tuesday.
Okay. On D. Councilman Ledford C, are we ready to go with that one? That one was a deferred item too.
No, thank you for asking. No, that one is still as indicated from our planning and zoning committee. I will be asking for another probably 2-month deferral on that. There is no rush from the applicant, and we are still working through. Obviously, we're in the middle of the land use plan out here in Area 11, and also awaiting some answers from TDEC that seem to be dragging along rather slowly, but there is no sense of urgency on that case for the applicant. So I'll probably be moving that for my note here says a March 8th to hear it in planning and zoning on March 8th.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Any other questions or issues with any of the planning items? All right, seeing none. Madam Clerk, let's go down to resolutions and read 7F, please.
A resolution to amend resolution number 30567 so as to make payment to governmentjobs.com doing business as NeoGov for a service and licensing agreement to provide human resources software services for onboard and performance management services, as well as the current recruitment and applicant tracking services for a renewal term of 12 months with a corrected amount of $74,392.65.
All right. Seeing no questions. G, please.
A resolution authorizing the appointment of Kyle Dickerson as a special police officer unarmed for the Land Development Office of the Department of Economic and Community Development to do special duty as prescribed herein, subject to certain conditions.
All right. Seeing nothing further, next, please.
A resolution authorizing the Office of the City Attorney to increase funds for blanket contract 536370 with Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services, Inc. for 2021 personal and property insurance coverage, total insured value of $6,706,369 for an amount not to exceed $661,656.
Any questions on this item? Seeing none, I, please.
A resolution approving a special exceptions permit for an existing liquor store change in ownership located at 911 Dodson Avenue.
Councilman, you're good. All right. That takes us down to purchasing questions. Anybody have any questions on the purchasing items for this evening? I believe there were 4 of them. All right, seeing none, January 19th agenda. Were there any questions on next week's agenda that anybody would like to bring up at this time so we can be prepared either now or next week to have them answered? All right, same question with our future consideration items.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Vice Chair, I have a couple of, well, just really one, and it's under Public Works. So, Councilman Mitchell, will we have an opportunity to maybe talk about these during Public Works and Transportation?
Well, I can make a note to do that. Is it related to East Lake?
Yes, it is, sir.
Okay.
It's nothing earth shattering. Just want to get a little clarification, particularly on the first bullet point as it relates to East Lake.
Okay.
I'd like to know exactly what that is.
So we'll have a Public Works Department report, and then we'll go over the resolutions on the 2-week agenda. And then I'll bring up this and give you the floor at that point.
That'll work.
All right. It's done. Well, it will be done.
All right, sir. Thank you. Councilman Gilbert, I see your hand.
Yes, sir. I was going to bring up something. A few months or almost a year ago, we had the education report on the disparity study by Strong, and myself and Councilwoman Coonrod want to put a resolution up together and to present it to y'all soon.
Okay.
So hopefully not next week, next following week, we want to put it on the agenda.
Very good. So you expect to have it drafted next week?
Yes, it's already basically drafted now.
Okay.
And we want to put it on then.
Very good. Well, as soon as it's drafted, we can definitely get it on the agenda. Both of you can submit that.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Chair, I've already sent a copy of that to Nicole, so at least she's got it.
You did already send a copy?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Gilbert, Councilwoman Coonrod, is it your wishes, or are you okay with having that sent around to the council for review before you submit it for the agenda?
I have no.
Okay. Hey, Phil, will you just go ahead and send it?
Yes, sir. I
Thank
have.
you.
Okay.
Just to the whole council.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Mitchell, I see your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I believe I saw that right before we started this meeting, Phil, and
Yes,
Councilperson Coonrod and Councilman Gilbert. Is it the proper procedure, seeing how it's something in writing, that we throw that into the legislative committee for a discussion before we vote?
Well, we're not saying where I said it because we already had a discussion, education part on it already.
Okay.
Education part of it. So that's the reason I say we're going to push forward so everybody know about it. But it's the will of the council. But I want to put it on as soon as I can.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. And Councilman Mitchell, it's a good question. We actually have legislative next week if they would like it heard in legislative, or we can just hear it in agenda. So either way, I'm fine with it. However, Councilman Gilbert and Councilwoman Coonrod are good with that.
Okay.
Councilwoman Coonrod, I see your hand.
Thank you. I agree with my colleague that we done had years of discussions about it. And I feel like at this point, like our council members, we already know what the issue is. I mean, we just can't continue to avoid it by putting Band-Aids on it. We have to address it. But I do, I would like the input of our council members. If you would just take and, look at the legislation, whatever you feel you want to add or think, we should look at, I welcome that input. So if that means, but I would really like to get it on the agenda, but, for the sake of my colleagues, we can put it in legislation and then move forward after the legislation committee.
Very good. Then, Karen, would you please make a note to have that item listed under legislative. It doesn't stop us from moving it to the agenda right away, just by putting it in legislative for next week.
And then I had a second thing is that we were supposed to be discussing the board appointment for the park because the appointment that I currently have, she's, adamantly requested to be removed. I've circulated twice the resume of Kanika Wellington Jones and just want to get her appointed so she can begin the transition, and also want to see if we could, since our governor has extended the executive order out until like the end of February, if we can offer to the constituents that are serving on the park board that same thing. Because of COVID, they're not able to, do the Citizens Academy, nor are they able to do the ride along with our officers. So it prevents them from having the ability to vote. So I'm asking as a council if we will allow them to their voice to be heard through vote and participate on the things that they're reviewing on the park when they have their meetings until the extension of the governor's orders.
Hey, Phil, do you have feedback on that? I believe the requirements in order to be eligible to vote are actually part of, I guess, the ordinance now, since we just put that actually as part of the charter. Is there a way that we can pass a temporary stay of those requirements as Councilwoman Coonrod has requested?
You can either do that by ordinance. It's supposed to have the same power as the ordinance involved here, and put in some provision regarding the period of declared emergency here. I think that's the issue right now. They can't actually have ride-alongs because of the closeness issues that are involved in that regard, and they're not holding any other citizens police academies. And the concern is the provision of the code here would prohibit anyone from being able to vote until such time as they have attended. If you want to do a temporary resolution of that, we can do that. It's got to be by an ordinance amendment during a period of emergency, but I can prepare that.
Councilwoman, that's up to you if you would like that prepared.
Yes, I would like that prepared, because not only will my appointment, Kanika Wellington, be able to vote, but also Chip's appointment that he made back in June, like they haven't been able to have their voice heard through vote. And I think that's very important to have their voice heard when they're reviewing the information and submitting their feedback.
Very well. All right, Phil, you got that?
I got it. I'll do it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Now, will I need to make that appointment for Kanika Wellington at 6?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Under right after other business, there's an item for board appointments. And make it at that time, as there are a couple other appointments to be made as well. And Phil, we will vote on Councilwoman Coonrod's appointment. However,
Yes.
I think the other ones, I'm not sure which ones Councilwoman Burrs have. I know I have 2 reappointments that don't require a vote.
Mine are
Yes.
reappointments as well.
The park committee will require at least a vote by the entire council. Yes.
Very
Thank
good.
you. Yeah, and I'll make sure that Kanika Wellington is on the 6 o'clock call in case you guys want to welcome her to be a part of the board. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Mhm.
Councilman Mitchell, I see another hand, sir.
Oh, well, thank you, Mr. Chair. That was just a hand in support. If it was a motion to make an adjustment or an ordinance amendment or anything like that, I was going to second her motion, and that's what that hand was about. Thank you.
Very good. Hey, Phil, one follow-up on that, just as soon as you can have it ready. I mean,
Yes, sir.
I don't know when they're supposed to meet next, but obviously if we can make sure to have this heard and voted on by the council by their next meeting, so that these 2 members do have that ability to vote, that would be great.
I believe their next meeting will be the first week in February, so we can get it done before then.
Okay, great.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilman Oglesby, I see your hand, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to apologize to Councilman Mitchell. Right in the middle of our conversation, my computer decides to update itself. So I was interrupted right in the middle of that conversation. So I just want that to be known, just in case it looked funny that all of a sudden I disappeared.
All good. Thank you,
I
Councilman.
have your apologies, Mr. Mitchell.
You want my apologies? Oh, you want me to accept your apologies?
Oh, yeah, accepted.
Well, I don't know. I'll get back to you on that.
This is just a formality, me asking you this. I want you to know that, okay?
Of course, I accept your apology, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Man, in my computer.
All right. Seeing no further hands, that was what we had covered on for our regular agenda. We will be moving into committees. Before we do that, is there anything further that this body would like to discuss beforehand? We do have a departmental report by Public Works, but we are going to handle that in the Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting. Is there anything further, council?
Yes. Raise back.
Were you just hissing, Councilman, or was that a yes?
That was a yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir. Councilman Burt?
At this time too, I was checking to see, did we have the quarterly reports on our schedule for Park? Ms. Karen sent me over a list of dates that Park would like to give their quarterly report to us. And I was wondering, are we gonna do that during a committee, or would you like to do that during earlier during agenda session, or how would you all like to receive that quarterly report? So Ms.
I
Karen,
would recommend that all those reports be given in the Public Safety Committee.
I understand. That's good. So if we can, could Ms. Karen or Nicole, we can go ahead and schedule those dates that we have. Thank you, Karen, so much. All right. That's
Yeah,
it.
just schedule a Public Safety Committee meeting for each one of those dates that they're set to give the report moving forward.
It's done.
Very good.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mhm.
Is there anything else before we move ahead into committees? Okay, I see none. All right, at this time, we will adjourn our regular agenda meeting and we will move into Public Works and Transportation Committee with Councilman Mitchell. It's all yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I get approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All right, no objections?
Nope.
All right, then we'll move into. Going to start with is a department report from Public Works. Is Mr. Payne here or someone else going to give that presentation?
I've got Mr. Payne coming, sir.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council. How are you today?
Afternoon.
So this afternoon, I've actually got one quick item, and we're also have a presentation from our Parks Division that we'd like to give about some outdoor information. So if I could ask Karen, could James Bergdahl be brought in? James is going to make the Parks presentation, and while he's coming in, I'll like to give the council a little update. I know recently there's been a lot of discussion about litter and litter service requests, and I wanted to give the council some information that even though we've had some reduction in the number of community service offenders that are available through the courts program, and that has reduced us some, and we've also had some impacts that have been due to our regular crews due to COVID. We've actually have taken that as an opportunity in some of our construction crews to put them together into some smaller crews that are able to go out, and we have been using them recently to try to address more of these litter service requests that have been coming in to try to help offset the fact that there's not been as many available community service workers that have been available. One example is just this past weekend, we actually had some crews that were able to work on Saturday, both some hand crews that worked, as well as some of the leaf trucks, which do service during the regular summer months as litter pickup. And between the litter crews and the trucks, we were able to hit several areas that had a significant number of litter service requests that were out there. There were 49 bags of litter that were collected by the hand crews on Saturday, and there were also, I believe, 6 or 7 of the leaf trucks that were out there, and between them all, they collected about 14 tons of litter and other, some of it, of course, being some leaf and other organic matter, but 14 tons of total debris was removed from the right of way. Those locations ranged from 37th Street, 38th Street, Cummings Highway, Central Avenue, Wilson Road, Hooker Road, Workman Road, as well as Germantown, Tunnel Boulevard, Shallowford Road, Wilcox Boulevard, Greenwood Road, Bonnie Oaks Drive, Jenkins Road, Morris Hill, and a second section on Shallowford Road. So I just wanted to let the council know about that because I know that you all have been very concerned about some of the litter that's out there, and we are making the effort that we can with the resources that we have available. So I wanted to make sure that the council knew that we're continuing to do what we can with our resources. So,
Mr. Payne, and I'm sure I can get a agreement out of Councilman Smith. Would you, as you're going through that, would you give Access Road a look? It's pretty rough.
certainly, we'll be glad to. We can make sure that gets added to the list. So,
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Please proceed.
Certainly. So with that, be happy to at this time to ask James Bergdahl to give the council. We've got a few slides of presentation. Wanted to talk today about how, particularly during 2020, there's been, of course, a big impact to everybody from COVID. But our Parks division has seen that in a couple of different ways, and we wanted to share some numbers about how the golf courses, as well as some trail counters that we have in a couple of locations, actually have sort of been able to document what those changes look like. So with that, James Bergdahl, our Director of Parks.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Thanks, Bill, for the introduction. I'll share my screen. I do have a few slides here. Okay. Okay. What?
James, we are seeing your speaker notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trying to get that out of the way here.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So as Bill said, we have a way to collect some data in parks and in golf, and we wanted to just share some of that data in regard to the usage from 2020, especially with COVID-19, how that might have affected the use of the golf courses and our parks, particularly some of the trail usage. So we'll start with golf courses. Of course, we have Brainerd Golf Course and Brown Acres Golf Courses. As far as rounds, you can see on the screen a comparison from 2019 and 2020 calendar years, whereas the 2019 started off, we were doing really very well as far as the usage in golf. And then you can see in March and then April and May were affected by COVID-19. In April, we were shut down pretty much for the majority of that month. And then in March and May, we did have some restricted use, just trying to follow guidelines and trying to figure out the best practices to allow for the public safe use on the golf courses. But you can see that we did really well in the second part of 2020, as well as the second part, or all of 2019, and then the second half of 2020 after the restrictions were lifted. We went back to 29. We looked at the fiscal years, and we wanted to show a comparison going back to fiscal year 2019 to fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 21, where under the before the pandemic hit in fiscal year 2020, we were trending ahead of the previous year. And then we felt that had we been able to operate under full use that during the month of restricted use and the shutdown, we felt like we were on track to have one of our better years in recent times. As this current fiscal year started back in July, you can see that we're trending above the last 2 fiscal years already. And I'll show that in a little more detail on the next slide. Already in the first half of this fiscal year compared to last fiscal year, we're already showing an increase of over 6,000 rounds from last year. In revenue terms, that difference has equated to an additional $230,633 above ahead of where we were at this point last year. And this was tracked from July 1 to December 31st. So we're going to talk a little bit about, we do have 2 trail counters in place, and one of them is on the Tennessee River Walk at the Chestnut Street Trailhead, which is the old US Pipe property. You can see at the bottom of the map, bottom left of the map, where that location is. And then the other one is at Greenway Farm, and the trail counter is located on the trail that leads down towards the dam right behind the barn. And the way this trail counter works, it is specifically made for pedestrians, so it counts walkers, runners, and bicyclists, and it uses an infrared technology. It actually tracks the body heat. So we think that maybe some of that at Greenway Farm uses could be deer, but we think it is mostly pedestrian use. But it measures both directions of travel. So I'll show you an in number and an out number, and then it works in all weather conditions. And it can actually detect if there's multiple people walking together. As long as they're staggered a touch, it'll pick that up too. So with Greenway Farm, we say walking in means they're walking south towards the dam. Walking out means they're walking north back to the parking lot. And so those numbers are, as you can see, sometimes they're not always 100, they don't always equate because of a variety of reasons. Like I said, it could be picking up a deer, or it may not be picking up someone when they come back, or whatever the case is. But you can see for the most part that in May, that was the largest use for that particular trail in the park. And you can see when we were shut down in the month of April. Going to the Riverwalk, kind of the same trends that we saw at Greenway Farm. We had April was, we can't shut down the Riverwalk, so people do use the Riverwalk for transportation, and there are multiple ways to get on and off the Riverwalk, so that's nearly impossible to actually shut that down. So we did have regular usage during that time in April when parks were officially closed, but as you can see, prior to the shutdown and after the shutdown, we really had a spike in usage. We haven't had these trail counters in place long enough to collect multiple years of data, but we do have a little bit of data from 2019 that is the light color, the light green color on this slide, and compared to this year in 2020 in the dark green color, that we did have more usage on a daily average on the Tennessee Riverwalk. Some key figures for the year, you can see the annual counts for both sites. Obviously, the Riverwalk is used more so and has a higher daily average. But when we look at the top 3 peak dates for each site, you can see that Greenway Farm actually has higher peak date usage, whereas the Riverwalk has peak usage on the weekends, but throughout the week it's used quite a bit. So it's interesting to note that the Riverwalk is used for recreation and travel per se, whereas the Greenway Farm usage is mostly all recreational use. And that concludes our presentation. I just wanted to quickly get in front of you all and show you some numbers. So I'll be happy to answer some questions or go back and look at any of these other slides if there is an interest.
I have a question. What, can you take your screen down now?
I will try.
First of
There we
all, before I recognize Councilman Gilbert, who has his hand up, I want to say, James, that those golf course results looked fantastic. And I think it's only fair to point out the bad months were actually declared, I believe, by the mayor as closed. So there's not much you could have done about any of that. So I think, and I've been outspoken about the golf courses, but when it's time to give a compliment, I will give a compliment. I think those results are outstanding, and I just want to say great work. Councilman Gilbert.
I have to say amen to what you just said. And are they looking at connecting these walkways together? I noticed on the highway, I think C.B. Robinson Bridge, they're doing construction. Are they going to start looking at connecting for North, Hickson, downtown, and in my area? These parks, they can walk each one of them just by walking or riding bikes?
Great question.
Yeah, I believe there is a master plan for the Greenway system in Chattanooga, and our transportation department is actively working on that. So that would probably be a better question for Mr. Bailey.
Okay, because I know that hopefully if we do that, we can have certain tournaments here and bring more revenue to the city because we have so much greenway people can actually run on or bicycle on. So I guess I asked him when I see him. If he be here today, I'll ask him today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I see no more questions.
Councilman, I have one, sir. Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sorry, I couldn't raise my hand for you.
I understand.
It's just real quick for, first, James, thank you very much. I appreciate all the numbers, and I love to see how much usage our parks are getting, especially Greenway. I've been out there many, many times, and it happens to be one of the biggest spaces that we have in the city where people can go and a lot of people can be without being close together. So it's really helped a lot of people find a place to go during COVID. Without having to worry about being too confined with others. So thank you for showing that. It definitely shows that it has been well utilized. Along those same lines, Bill, would after this meeting or at some point today or tomorrow, can you shoot me over an updated timeline on Greenway, on our new center, and maybe what the latest plans are? I know we had to go back to the drawing board on a couple of things and do some updates, and that's what one of the last contract changes that we had to approve. Would you send me all the latest? I believe I was supposed to have a meeting with Justin before he left, and then with all of this, it never happened. So if you'd send me the latest, I'd appreciate it.
Certainly, we'd be glad to. We're in value engineering now, and I'll be glad to get that from our team and get that to you.
I'd love to see it. With the updated timeline would be awesome. Thank you so much again. I truly appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions for Public Works? Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I ask James a question about the dog park at East Brainerd and Heritage Park, Jack Benson? I've had some constituents ask, James, you can get with me offline, that's fine. Some folks just asked me what the update is on some of the projects that are going on out there. I know we've got the Randy Boyd project through the foundation. So if you would get with me offline, I appreciate the opportunity to catch you on Zoom here today. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'll send you an update. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Payne, Mr. Bergdahl, great report. Thank you for all your hard work. And Karen, would that be you that will send them on their way?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just one item, because I know, while I know we'll go over the other items, last week, I know Councilwoman Coonrod had requested the update on the consent decree.
Yes.
And we will be ready to present that information in 2 weeks at the next Public Works Committee meeting.
Okay, Madam Clerk, would you please schedule that for the 26th, I believe that is, a Public Works and Transportation meeting, and we'll have that within that committee meeting. Thank you so much, Mr. Payne, for helping me with that.
Certainly, our pleasure.
All right, we're gonna move along to resolutions. We don't have any resolutions for transportation today, but I will at the end of the meeting ask if anyone has any transportation questions. We do have a very busy committee schedule though, so if you can get it offline, that would be great. So we're going to start reading resolutions today. Please read 7J.
Resolution authorizing for the Department of Public Works, the administrator for the Department of Public Works to award contract number R20017210, Summit of Softball Complex Improvements from the Easter Tornado 2020, Shade Structures Replacements to Lanier Plans, Inc., doing business at Corcat of Carrollton, Georgia, in the amount of $48,887.92, with a contingency amount of $4,900 for a not to exceed amount of $53,787.92.
Councilman Ledford.
Chairman, I'll wait till after K is read.
All right, please read K.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to award contract number R20017208, Summit of Softball Complex Improvements from the Easter Tornado 2020 fencing replacement to Factory to You Fence of Knox, Inc. of Knoxville, Tennessee, in the amount of $112,900, with a contingency amount of $12,000 for a not to exceed amount of $124,900.
All right, now Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to express my gratitude to Mr. Payne for staying in communication with me so I can pass along to my constituents in District 4 the continued efforts on the summit reconstruction, if you will. And I know this is ongoing, and I really appreciate, Bill, you reaching out, and I've been able to share that information and gotten a lot of feedback from people who appreciate the ongoing effort for tornado relief and rebuilding. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Ledford. We do have a chairman in the House, I see. Well, thank you for joining us.
Hey, I couldn't miss Public Works Committee, sir.
Okay, that's great. All right, please read L.
A resolution authorizing the renewal of contract number E18007-101 on-call blanket contracts for architectural services, resolution number 29703, with Allen and Hawshall, Inc., Artec Design Group, Inc., Dorthick, Henley, and Wilkerson Architects, PLLC, Franklin Architects, Varden and Carroll Architects, Inc., and MBI Companies, Inc., formerly TWH Architects, Inc., for year 3 of a 4-year term with these 6 professional firms, estimated at $1,500,000, total annually for use by all departments.
I see no questions, but Mr. Chair, I want to tell you that the vice chairman did an excellent job while you were out. And I think the future council ought to consider him for advancement.
Well, I have no doubt that he did a great job, and I know you would be in great hands, sir.
I appreciate that endorsement, sir.
All right, please read M.
A resolution authorizing the renewal of contract number E18008-101, on-call blanket contracts for structural engineering services, resolution number 29704, with Allen and Hawshall, Inc., Alfred Bernish and Company, CTI Engineers, Inc., Estates Russell Engineering, Inc., Integrated Structural Service, Inc., March Adams and Associates, Inc., and Volkert, Inc., for year 3 of a 4-year term with these 7 professional firms, estimated at $300,000 total annually for use by all departments.
I see no questions, but boy, those architects make that money, and the engineers sure do take second place on this deal, don't they? All right, let's move along. N, please.
A resolution authorizing the renewal of contract number E18009101 on-call blanket contracts for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineer services. Resolution number 29702 with Campbell and Associates, Inc., March Adams and Associates, Inc., for year 3 of a 4-year term with these 2 professional firms, estimated at $300,000 total annually for use by all departments.
I see no questions. All right, next week's resolution, 7F, please.
A resolution authorizing the interim administrator for the Department of Public Works to renew a purchase order number 558894 with Enco Tennessee LLC for the final 1-year renewal period for sewer billing services for an amount not to exceed $1.6 million.
G, please.
A resolution.
Hold on, sir.
All right, Councilman Henderson.
A little slow getting my hand up. Mr. Payne, I know this is with 1 year left. What are our plans after that? Do you know?
We would certainly be able to continue looking at that. I know there is some discussion that has been out there about how to work through the billing side, but let me get with our staff to see that's still a year away. I think we're at that. I'm not able to answer that with confidence at this moment. So I'm glad to get that.
And I think that's something that we need to look at. I know, and it's been several years back now, we were planning on doing that in-house, and it looks like we're still having to contract it out. I'm just wondering if we'll ever get to the place that we'll be able to do it in-house.
Look, I'll be glad to look into that deeper and make sure I understand exactly where we are with that, since it's still a year out.
Okay.
I'll be glad to do that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Be here before you know it. Please read G.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to award the blanket contract for real-time GPS tracking system to CDW Government LLC for year 1 of a 5-year term to be renewed on a yearly optimal basis by the city for year 1 of the agreement, and the stated amounts in the agreement for each renewal year in the amount of $575,077.50.
All right, I see no questions. H, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator of Public Works to execute change order number 1 final for Tally Constructions relative to contract number E19010 Ferdinand Peachway winding for an increased amount of $12,206.45 to release the remaining contingency amount of $111,693.47 for a revised contract amount of $1,461,265.68.
All right. I see no questions, but I want to take your attention to future considerations, if I could. And we have under Public Works a couple of District 7 items on future considerations. And I'm going to turn it over to Councilman Oglesby to see if he can get some clarification. You are muted, I believe.
Since we've had that conversation, several other questions have spurred. So rather than spend too much time on it today, I will get with the team at Public Works and get those questions answered.
All right. Are there any more questions for Public Works? And I have just received word that Mr. Bailey is on the line. Are there any questions for Mr. Well? Okay, I see Councilman Henderson.
So I just want to clarify if Councilman Oglesby has some questions about items on the future, the look ahead. Bill, is this, and I'm assuming it's the 2 contracts that deal with East Lake. I just want to make sure they're not getting put on the agenda before we're ready for them to get put on the agenda. In other words, they're not being planned. Bill, is it your intent to put those on next week on the 2-week agenda?
Yes, sir. That was our target. That was the reason we had shown them on the future considerations.
Okay. So Councilman Oglesby, are you good with them being on the 2 week? Or would
Oh,
you
yeah,
like
yeah.
a little more time?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I am.
Okay.
I'm
all
good with
right,
it being on the 2 week, yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you. You ought to consider a future in leadership also.
Well, we'll see what happens.
All right, Councilman Byrd.
Thank you, sir. Bill, do you have time today to discuss? I see where you did reach out about the things that were going on and I had questions about at the yard.
Yeah, are you? I'd be glad to talk to you about that sometime. Or are you asking? Are you asking for that information now?
No, we could talk about it offline. I was just saying, will you be available later on today?
Oh, yes, sir, I am.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Just call me at your convenience.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any questions for Mr. Bailey, who's on a phone line, but he can answer the questions? Seeing none, the only thing I have left in committee meeting, and seeing how I'm the chairman of the committee, I'm going to take a little privilege. Last week we had some more on steep slopes. We had an active conversation. I'm looking to the council. I've had thoughts all week about do we move this to legislative committee to start getting legislation done on steep slopes, but usually we would take that move if there was already legislation written and pending. So I'm looking for a way to get something done before I'm out of here in 3 months, and I'm not going to leave you alone. So that's my promise to the other 8 of you. So where are we going to go next? And I'm looking for hands. First, we have Councilperson Burrs and then Councilperson Ledford. Councilperson Burrs. Uh-oh, looks like we got a mute.
Our process is if Councilman Ledford is sure that we've had full discussion on all this, then it goes to form legislation. And I yield to Councilman Ledford, but I think you're right. I think we needed to go forward with legislation, and I think we've had enough discussion. Councilman Ledford can disagree, of course. You've done a lot of work, and so I think it's ready to go. If you say it's ready to go, I don't think it has to go to legislative committee. Councilman Ledford can be talking with Phil, and Phil can go ahead and do the legislation.
That's a great suggestion. I will go to Councilman Ledford next.
Thank you, Chairman. I actually agree with both of you, and am already taking the steps now to look at this in an ordinance format as requested by the council. One thing I do a pretty good job of on Zoom so far is listening. And I think that the consensus of this council is enough with the hurdles. Let's clear them and let's get something on the table to talk about. So Chairman, that train is pulling out of the station.
All right, have you got any kind of deadlines for us or any kind of goals that you might have to try to produce something in cooperation with the attorneys?
Sure, and I'm hoping to have something to present before next Planning and Zoning Committee, if all goes well. We're still running a campaign right now, so we're doing the best we can do, but the train is pulled out and we're moving in that direction.
Okay, well, Councilman Gilbert, did you lower your hand? No, he's muted. Well, I shouldn't even ask when I should.
Hey, I'm gonna ask in Councilman Overby's committee the question.
Okay, all right, that's great. That's probably the proper place to do that.
Yeah.
So I'll take my privilege back and take my ball. And if there's no other questions from Public Works and Transportation, we will adjourn into Economic and Community Development. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you much, Chairman Mitchell. I now call to order the Economic and Community Development Committee meeting. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. With no objection, we will go on to the agenda. I believe items A through C of this week has already been read into the record last week. If there's no questions on any of those items, we will move on to Tuesday, January the 19th resolutions, which I also believe has been read into record last week. If there are no objections. Councilman Ledford, is that an old hand?
That's a new hand, sir, on
I'm
item
sorry,
A.
okay.
That's okay. I just wanted to show my gratitude and appreciation for the council support on that change to city code and the overgrowth and abatement process. Thank you again.
Okay, great. Thank you, Councilman Ledford. Councilman Gilbert.
Yes, sir. Did we get with Mr. Dallas and his crew to hopefully have a meeting on enforcement of people not doing what they should do when they're building or construction?
Yes, I'm working on that schedule now, and I'll be getting with the chairman to schedule that response.
Thank you, sir.
So yes, I have contacted the crew for that information.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, if there are no other questions regarding the resolutions on economic and community development, seeing no other hands, I would now move on to our presentation with Encino and the AIM Center project that we have been discussing. Madam Clerk or Vice Chairman, who's ever in control, I need to bring up. Yes.
Yeah, I have a hand up.
Yeah, you do now. Yes, sir. Yes, Councilman Mitchell.
All right, yeah, and this is sort of related to what Councilman Gilbert said, and I don't want to interrupt this presentation because I know it's going to be a good one. But
Yes.
I would like added to the questions. I've received some information, and at one point I thought I could have misunderstood, led to believe that especially as it relates to slopes, land disturbing permits were not being issued until plans were seen. And I've been told that that is not the case. So could that question be added to the discussion when we have it?
Sure, absolutely, Councilman. It's been added to the list of answers that this council is looking for. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Okay, now seeing that there's no other hands, let's bring up Tyler Yount, Donna Maddox, Heather Bradley, and Rick Manzardo. I hope I said that right, Rick. And we're going to get an update on the Encino AIM Center project. Okay. Which is located in District 8.
Y'all see my screen okay?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Council. We're here to give you an update on the Aspero Chattanooga project at 1815 East Main. We've been talking about this project and taking action in different ways for the past year now. And so today we're about to discuss the final steps, and that's the donation agreement. A reminder of what we're trying to do with this project from the city's perspective, what we're hoping to achieve. We want to repurpose a blighted, contaminated property that we own, provide 60 new high-quality homes for Chattanoogans, and make sure that they are affordable to folks with low income, provide on-site supportive services that help the individuals maintain tenancy and stability, provide a new home for 15 individuals experiencing homelessness and mental illness that are frequent users of our emergency services, develop this property in a way that benefits our residents who live there and in surrounding neighborhoods, and turn a property that's costing us money into a property that's generating revenue for city services. So about a year ago, when we first started discussing this project, and the goal was for AIM and Vecino Group to receive funding from the state for this project, and they were not successful. And there were two primary reasons that they were not chosen over another similar project in Knoxville. And that was the site wasn't properly zoned for the existing use, and the level of site control that AIM Center had was not enough to meet THDA's preference. And so we decided it was worth taking another crack at it and trying to fix those things to better align ourselves for funding and try again. And so we went back to the community over the summer and engaged with them even over Zoom for a few months at each neighborhood meeting, talking about the site plan, what it would look like, answering their questions, talking about the donation agreement and what that would look like, and getting their feedback. And then, of course, in September, y'all approved the rezoning to go to UGC. And now on the 26th, we're going to be adding a donation agreement to AIM Center for the land. And those two things should remedy these problems that the state identified and put this project in good success for March 2021. And this will be kind of the last crack at it. I wanted to talk specifically about the donation agreement. It's complicated, it's long, and so I wanted to give you some of the important things from the city's perspective that we wanted to make sure to add. What the donation agreement does is donates the land to AIM Center, and AIM Center only. They own the land, and it's ordered to complete this project specifically. Everything in this agreement we vetted with the state and attorneys to make sure that it would give them the proper level of site control they needed for this funding that THDA said they didn't have before. And our goal as a city when we were negotiating this was finding the right balance between giving AIM Center the control that they need while also maintaining our ability to retain ownership if something goes awry. And so we added some clawback provisions to the donation agreement. And they're called performance requirements in the donation agreement. There's three different ones. The first is the use. We're requiring that for 25 years, this property would be used for affordable housing, and that's defined as 60% AMI or less, and provide supportive services specifically to the 15 set-aside units for supportive housing. And those two uses have to be maintained for 25 years. The financing requirements basically says if AIM and Vecino are not successful in getting the state financing by October 1st, 2021, we get the land back. And so if this deal falls through, that's okay. We can try again and see, other ways that we can use this land for public benefit. And then the third is a completion requirement. We don't want this project to be stalled indefinitely and just sitting unfinished. And so this gives them a 2-year window to complete the project by June 1st, 2023, and obtain their certificate of occupancy. And so these are the provisions that basically protect us so that if this project is not successful, we get the land back and can finish it out. It also specifies some community benefits that the project would provide to the neighborhoods. And this was something we heard specifically from Highland Park neighborhood that they wanted included. And so we outlined and discussed with them what they would like to see in terms of how it integrates into their neighborhood and with their neighbors. So here is kind of the list. There will be a multi-purpose community room that is open to all neighborhood meetings and gatherings. There will be upgraded and new sidewalks around the property, and especially fronting Main Street. There will be a community garden that is primarily used by the residents there, but will be open to all neighborhood members to come and use and work with them on. It will provide a green space park area on part of the land for use for whatever the neighborhood would like to do. They can use it as a park space, or they can use it for events as an open space. A new bus shelter that will be built along Main Street on the bus stop. Removal of the buildings that are currently on the property, and eradication of the environmental issues that are currently in the soil there. And then finally, landscaping and kind of beautification to enhance the block. And so those are spelled out as well. Those are the main parts that we were concerned about to make sure got in there. And we feel like we're in a good place now that we adequately protect the city and this property and our right to this property, while also, hopefully making this project successful. There's a reason that we're asking for action before the end of January, and that's because, again, this application's due March 1st, 2021. In order to basically, sign the documents, get the deed moved over to AIM Center, we need to get it done by January to be successful. So that's my piece. I'm going to turn it over to Donna Maddox of AIM Center to tell you a little bit about the site and their plans for that and what the development will look like. And then we'll answer questions at the end. Is Donna on here?
I am on here. Can you hear me? I don't have visual.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. It's wonderful to be with you again today. And we're just thrilled that we have this opportunity to get back before council and committee again. Thank you, Chairman, for having us. The thing that I think that impresses me most is all the hard work that is going to get us here to today. We had that a disappointment last funding cycle with THDA and did not get the funding approved, but we certainly understand. And I want to just commend the staff at the city. Every person that we have worked with has set this as a side of a goal to make happen, to be able to afford, to help us get some fantastic affordable housing built that will support some of our neediest citizens and residents of Chattanooga. So we're really excited. And I want to say that to the staff at the city, but also to you as a city council. I know several of you really have stepped up in your communities where this will take place and been on the hot seat to some degree. And I want to thank you very much. And so we feel this urgency about going forward. We would like to see you share this recognition and getting this project built. So thank you very much for having us. This property is at 1815 Main Street. It is centered there within the Highland Park and the Oak Grove neighborhoods. Already it is a vibrant piece of property. Of course, we know what it can become, but there on the map, you will note that there are already markets and shopping and restaurants. It has good public access. And we do believe as we go forward, when this property is developed as, we'll turn it over to Vecino next and go back through just a few slides for you to see. But we do think we just have premier housing in this area that all the neighbors and the neighborhoods will be very proud of, as we will be. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. So I'll turn it over to Heather Bradley Gary. She's the Director of Supported Housing with the Vecino Group. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Donna. And thank you, Council, for taking time today. As Donna mentioned, I'm Heather Bradley Geary with Vecino Group. And Vecino, I know you've all heard about Vecino. We've presented at City Council before. We're a national supportive housing developer, so come to you with a very social mission of really working to end homelessness. So we have 20 supportive housing communities currently in 8 states and have had the pleasure of ending homelessness for about 500 households. So specifically to the community that we're talking to you about today, as Tyler mentioned, we'll have 60 units with 15 units set aside for folks that are coming through the FUSE program. So really our chronically homeless folks that live in Chattanooga. And as Donna mentioned, Ames Center will be the majority owner of this project. So there'll be 51% of the ownership. They will also provide the services and the property management on site. And we have also have a collaboration with Chattanooga Public Housing Authority. They have committed project-based vouchers for the whole community, in which the residents will pay 30% of their income for rent, and that voucher will make up the difference. Tyler, I believe on the next slide gives a little bit better view. Yeah, so you'll see more here on what the actual building and surrounding area will look like. So this will be a 3-story building. We'll have 52 one-bedrooms, 8 2-bedrooms. There's quite a bit of amenity space. So on this sketch where there's brown, that's really that community space that Tyler talked about, that will have community meetings. That'll be an open area. It actually has a lot of glass, so it'll be open to the neighborhood. That's also where we'll have our social service space and office management space. And then there'll be a door. So then the blue area is where the living spaces will be for our residents. We will have a pocket park, which is shown here on this sketch, and then lots of green space on that area. And then we'll have 75 parking spots. So this is something, as we met with neighborhoods, that they really wanted to make sure we had enough parking on this block so that folks aren't having to park on the street. So that will more than accommodate the folks at Aspera with 75 parking spots. So I think next is Rick. I will go ahead and turn it over to Rick Manzardo. He's the president of Vecino, and he's just going to go through basic numbers, just kind of from the 10,000 foot view of what this project, what the financials look like. So Rick, feel free to jump in.
Great. Thank you, Heather. And again, thank you all for the time today. It is truly appreciated. I will keep this pretty brief. A lot of it is kind of repetitive on this slide in particular. But as mentioned, 52 one-bedroom units, 8 two-bedroom units, all will be vouchered units. The development like I said, we're very rough on the estimates right now, roughly $12 million development. Of that, about 90% would be paid through tax credits. The other 10% would be paid through a permanent loan and deferred developer fees. And then on the next slide, you'll see kind of the funding or the funding uses. Important to note, we apply in March, hopefully allocated in May. Once that allocation is made, this funding is locked in place. So it's not going to start and stop. This will be a constant project. Once we start going, we're not stopping until this project is done. We walked the site. We've been through it's got quite a bit of site work, kind of cleaning up. But again, all that is incorporated into the cost of this roughly $12 million project. With COVID, we've kind of learned we've got to be conservative on the banking rates, on the syndication rates. Those are worked in there. I don't want to get too far in the weeds. Syndication rate, we've got priced at 85 cents. Markets use about 88. So we've got safe figures, and we know we get this project done, and we can deliver a great project to the city. Again, we're kind of mandated by the THDA, the state rules, as far as the debt coverage ratio and whatnot. So all that is incorporated. And with that, I just want to say from the AIM team, from the Vecino team, thank you. This has been a long process, but one that we're very excited about. It could be a great project, help a lot of people in the community. So with that, we will open it up to questions.
Okay, where you at, Council? Councilman Ledford, you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not sure who wants to answer this, but so recently in my district, we've had a situation arise where the project that you're building or the product you're building is becoming quite the need. And so my question to you both is, do you have your eyes set on any other projects like this in the city of Chattanooga? Because, well, quite frankly, we're seeing this, and we're seeing where this can be extremely not only valuable, but something I think we need to explore maybe even a little bit more than what we're doing. So if you would follow up with that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. So I can, right now, we're not looking at any other projects in Chattanooga. However, I will say that once we, this would be our first project in Tennessee. And so we do have a history of once we get our footing on the ground in a state and understand how the different things work at the state level, we usually stay in a state. So we would love to talk to you more about after Aspero is funded, looking at the next project.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Councilman Byrd, this is in your district. Is there anything you would like to add to this great project?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just excited. Like they mentioned earlier, we worked hard in the beginning, you know, and we got some pushback, but then we was able to make people really understand how this is going to help the community. And I'm just excited to know that, you know, we have another tool in our arsenal to create affordable housing and to just give people a decent place to live, because we're really fighting with that. Like Councilman Darren Leffert said, our community is growing, but unfortunately it's not growing for everyone. So I just thank Facino, I thank the AIM Center, and just look forward to hopefully being able to do more structures like this and just getting people a quality place to live. So thank you guys so much.
Well said, Councilman Byrd. This is truly, truly a great project in your district. And I am prayerful that once this project is over, it can be emulated in other parts of the city. So I'm really excited about what this project is going to look like once it's done. And thank you, Encino. Thank you, Donna, for your leadership in this matter and all that you do for the AIM Center and the citizens that participate there. So, Council, I don't see any other hands. Are we good? Okay. Well, with that being said, once again, thank you, Encino. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Tyler. And I'll adjourn this Economic and Community Development Committee meeting, and I would turn it over to Chairperson Byrd for Budget and Finance. Councilwoman Byrd.
Thank you, Councilman. Good meeting. Call to order the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. May I have a motion on the minute?
Second.
Thank you. I'm sure none are opposed. So I promised you at the beginning of the year, of our fiscal year, that we would keep you informed on everything that's happening as far as this year, coming year, 22 budget year is concerned, include you all the way, give you opportunities, and then all this information you could take back to your constituents so that they would be fully informed. Everything that I'm talking about today will be up on the website so that there's no secrets and there's just all kinds of ways to get input. What we're going to talk about today are the public input meetings that we had. People from across the city participated in them. And I thought it would be important for you to get the results and ask questions, because a lot of them show trends in your district. And I know particularly for many of you who are running for office, this ought to be pretty helpful. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Tyler to make the presentation. There is a PowerPoint and we'll have questions afterwards. Thank you.
Back. Hold on, let me share my screen again. Well, thanks, Councilwoman Burrs. I'm excited today to present to you some of the results of our budget public input and some other analysis we've done to kind of set the stage for what our priorities are looking like and what residents said that they wanted in our next budget. So I'm going to start to talk a little bit about the process, which is obviously quite different this year. I'll go over the results of what we heard in each area, and then talk a little bit about how we'll share the results. First of all, the process. So in years past, we've had meetings around the city, and this year, as we started to do this, we were seeing dramatic increase in our COVID cases. So we decided to try something different and do virtual meetings, which were pretty successful. People were able to engage with us in a similar way that they do in person. And like in years past, we always start with a very open-ended question. What does a city with safer streets look like to you? And go through the results areas. We also added a component this year about where you would like to see these investments to help our capital budget team see exactly where we need to put capital investments. You can see some of the numbers here. We got 1,164 ideas and pieces of feedback. We had a couple of city council members show up and listen. We had lots of different city staff from different departments attend and listen in. 78 residents attended, and we had even more that registered but didn't attend. On our online survey, that we also had kind of a static version of what we discussed in these meetings and had that run online for about a month and a half. And we got 81 responses, 1,036 ideas. We also decided to offer some type of option, especially for our seniors that may not be able to participate online and folks who have problems getting connected. We have a curbside service at our library that was pretty well used by those folks. And so we offered a curbside survey as well. Nobody participated, but I do think it was important just to make sure it was accessible to everybody and everybody had a chance to participate no matter what their circumstance was. A couple of notes. One kind of anecdotal thing is that participants skewed younger than the average age of residents in each district. So keep that in mind. People who participated felt motivated to do so. So don't take this as kind of a scientific representative sample. This is a pretty good representation of people in your district, but it's going to skew to people who wanted to voluntarily participate. And so these are the folks who are already active and looking for ways to give input. We know who participated. We know where they live, which was a new piece of data we collected this year, and what they said. We don't know demographics. So we don't know age, race, sex, or things like that. But we do have some data that can get you a little more granular look at your district. And then I think for what we're able to do safely in a COVID environment, this was our best effort to be as complete as we can. If we were able to do things in person, I think we would have seen probably increased participation as well. And the last thing is, this is one piece of the puzzle. You all hear from your constituents throughout the year as well, which you need to take into account. There's the annual community survey that internal audit does that we need to take into account. And so, kind of look at it all as pieces of a holistic picture that you can use to be a yardstick for what your priorities are. This is kind of a breakdown of who participated by district. So you can see the green is online surveys, the blue are Zoom participants, and at the bottom there are some people who weren't able to specify which way they participated. And here are some of the results. So the top three ideas that we heard over and over through different results areas this year was an interest in rethinking investment in public safety. This was taking place kind of on the tail end of George Floyd protests and things of that nature. But we heard a specific interest in mental health crisis and mental health type services. The second point here that we heard kind of ring across smarter students and growing economy was increased investment in minority and low income communities. And we saw that increase in priority level this year and compared to years past. And then finally, the need for investment in education. And this year we heard an increase in priority level for digital equity and access, getting people and families access to online tools, connections, training, and how to use those tools. And then finally, workforce training. People are losing jobs or getting hours cut back during COVID. And people said we need to make specific investments in workforce training to reskill them and make sure that they hang in there and can succeed in our local economy. Here's a breakdown of the main topics we heard by each district. So I'll let you just kind of take that in. It did vary across the district, and I anticipate this is probably what you hear regularly from your constituents anyways. So here were our 4 results areas we focused on, and these are the main ideas from each results area. Growing economy, we heard about workforce training and development, and specifically support for small and minority-owned businesses that were hit particularly hard by COVID. Safer streets. I talked about this before. Mental health emergencies was the main topic here. Stronger neighborhoods. This is consistent with what we hear as the top priority every year, which is more opportunities to get to know your neighbors, community events, gatherings, things of that nature. And for smarter students and stronger families, we saw a rise in the priority level of resources for Department of Youth and Family Development and investments in YFD. And then after school programming, which is always a top priority in this area year over year. Here were some of the main issues and themes from growing economy. You can see workforce training is number 1, and support and outreach for minority business number 2, and support for small business number 3. So these things have been topics and kind of some of the main issues and focuses on this results area in the past, but they definitely jumped to a higher priority this year than in years past. Investment in the economy and jobs, finding ways to get more jobs. And then this year we heard some of our younger residents talk about the green economy and how we can get prepared for kind of being part of that sector of our economy after COVID, higher wages, and attracting outside companies' investment in tourism were kind of on the lower end. I pulled out quotes from some of what actual residents are saying that I thought were kind of representative of some of these issues. So you're not just looking at numbers, and you're kind of hearing it in the words of our own residents of what they said. Safer streets. This one changed a lot this year compared to years past. In the past 3 years, the top response here is usually increased patrol officers. And this year, we saw increased resources for mental health emergencies instead. Enhanced lighting, it continues to be a priority in this area, and decreased crime, same thing. Improved community and police relations and community policing was in the middle here. Better sidewalks, and in particular investments in safe ways to get around town, decreased homelessness, and this kind of reinforces too, like feeling safe when you're biking and walking. Stronger neighborhoods. In addition to events and gatherings, we heard about affordable housing a lot this year. This increased compared to years past and is kind of rising in priority level. Investment in public spaces and parks is number 3. Improving our public transportation network was number 4 and has increased in priority level this year compared to years past. Investments in infrastructure, paving our streets, investing in sidewalks, things of that nature were the next. Decreased homelessness again. And then finally, enhanced citywide internet access. We heard a lot this year about the investments in HCS Ed Connect and how people want us to see that continue to build and expand. And thought that was particularly a good thing that we could do to connect people. And finally, smarter students, stronger families. So there were lots of calls for investing in YFD and things to go on after school for kids. You can see address the digital divide is up here as number 2. Sorry for the typo, but this was a new theme that we hadn't heard in years past. Specifically, how can we get more people access to internet, access to the equipment they need to use it, and access to training on how to use it. Affordable options for childcare, college and job prep programs. This was specifically around ensuring that when kids graduate high school, they're ready to enter the workforce. And that could look like ready to enter college or ready to enter a job right out of high school. Food accessibility. This was things like food banks and making sure that emergency food needs are met, as well as grocery stores and things of that nature. Support for low-income communities, mental health resources in schools. People saw that as a way that we could help with social emotional learning in our public schools, affordable housing again, and finally, mentoring programs. This year, we also did something new. We've been partnering with a group called Zen City that have some advanced artificial intelligence that kind of analyze social media discourse. And so we also took a look at a 6-month span in 2020 and kind of looked at discourse online and on social media specifically and news about the city budget. So obviously, during George Floyd protests, we had the most interaction around the budget. Y'all heard it. So you know what that centered around. We also had some more interaction about the fire department, people mostly coming out to support, increased funding for the fire department. And then we also saw kind of a blip around education, investing in HCS Ed Connect, but specifically trying to help parents who are doing online learning for the first time. And you can kind of see the debate there. And here were kind of the most popular topics on social media around the budget. Public safety was the top, and that includes police, crime, and fire. Public health was second. Everything was COVID, and that's okay. So there was a lot of discourse about what we're doing to keep people safe. And then local economy was third. Lots of people on social media talking about and concerned about our small businesses locally. Education again, and then transportation. We also saw some discussion about road safety and specifically public transportation, trying to improve access to services during COVID. So the report is up online now for anybody to view here at cha.city/BFO22 report. In addition to sharing it with y'all, we're sharing it with the media. We're sharing it with our results team leads who review and rank offers and our offer writers. We also are putting all of the raw data up on our open data portal at chattadata.org. So anybody can kind of view the data and analyze it any which way they want. We started that last year and found it to be a really cool thing. And the biggest thing that this has use for at this point in our budget is helping everybody make decisions about prioritization and what we spend our money on and what we can't spend our money on. This helps these the people who are viewing offers to figure out the right mix of what ends up in the budget. So with that, I'll answer any questions y'all have.
Thanks, Tyler. Great. So what we're trying to do is meet everything that you guys asked for, get all the input that you asked for. And now the energy turns more to administration using all this information with you having knowledge of all the information to come up with a budget to present to us. Is there anything else that we can do to get you what you need for more input to administration? Are there any questions or concerns? Does anyone have anything?
Let me see.
Okay, Councilman Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. It's kind of not pertaining to the actual question, but a concern. I think Councilwoman Coonrod has spoken this before too, and I see a trend of it, Councilwoman and Tyler, is that a lot of times we definitely get presented with a lot of issues and things that the community want. Like, we understand public safety means a lot, but then I think public safety has to be broken down to where the conduct of our police officers, the structure and the policy that goes on, what happen, like the murder of George Floyd and the things that happened in those cities, definitely heart-wrenching. And we saw that emotion come out in our meetings, right? And once that emotion comes out, then we start to restructure and try to fix things. And sometimes we never get to the point to say, hey, this is the process and how it works. Or if it comes to homelessness or things like that, it seems like we never show our constituents the process of how we get to that finish line. It seems like we'll receive the emotion and then start placing money in different places to try to say that, hey, this emotion has been satisfied. But we never taught the people the process and the things that we have already done and the things that are in place. And so I would like to see in the future that we need to educate people more on the process to how we get to the finish line and what this body can do legally with taxpayers' money, what we can do and what we can't do. Because if you say like, hey, we need to fix homelessness, I know the money that has been put into homelessness, and I also know the things that we've been trying to do to change the look of the homeless situation in Chattanooga. But that process is sometimes hard to get to because the people sometimes don't understand how to get out of their situation. So it'll be on a person-to-person basis, and sometimes it just seems like we don't have an in-depth conversation with the constituents to let them understand how that process works. And I would just like to see a lot more of that.
How can we meet that need?
I think definitely when we have these meetings and these budget sessions, if someone brings up the fact that we need more green spaces or our green spaces are not, then we can tell them about all the parks that we have invested millions of dollars in and say, okay, when you use this park, why did you not like this park? How many times have you visited the Miller Park? How many times have you visited this park, Coolidge Park? We need to ask those questions to see how many times they visited and didn't like. Have you been taking advantage of the services that we have for our homelessness? Have you called these numbers to take advantage of them and they didn't answer the phone or they didn't help you with the transition to get you out of your homeless situation? It seems like those questions need to be asked in the room to say, if you tried the process that we put forth and it didn't work, tell us what we can do now to change our process instead of every year trying to recreate a new process and we're gonna never fix it.
Okay, so I guess more specifically, when we're talking about budget and finance, tell me what you need to happen for you to feel like we're getting that kind of input. And we can make it happen. Just what do you have in mind?
I think I need to hear how the processes that we voted on the 4 years we've been in office and the things that we've put in place. I want to know how those processes have had shortfalls for the people to say, we did this and we put this in place and it failed the people. I want to see that instead of recreating a whole new wheel and we haven't even seen if we failed the people with the processes we put in place.
So for instance, you mentioned homelessness. If we have a report on homelessness, the other piece is from the people, is it working?
Right.
I got it.
And if it's not working, then we address that with the administration to say, okay, this money that we put here is not working because the people have tried to get to this and they can't do it. They can't weave through the process. It's too hard. It's too complicated to get on the computer. Whatever that is, we can't fix it this way. So you need to tweak what you're doing. And it's like we never get there. It's just change it again.
So, Mr. Chair, I think he's talking about some sort of reports and some sort of feedback from the public. I just used homelessness as an example. With your permission, I think I'd like to talk with Councilman Byrd further and see if we can set something up to see if what we funded is working. That's what you're talking about, isn't it, Anthony?
Yes, 100%. Because if we set these processes up to work and our processes are failing the people, that's a whole nother conversation. But if the process is not being utilized, then we got to direct them to the process so we can figure it out.
Yeah, deal with fact instead of innuendo. With your permission, Mr. Chair, and Anthony, if you would, let's talk offline.
Okay.
and see what we can help get set up. Will that work?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
So
Okay, I'll holler at you this week. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
let me ask one other thing, Councilwoman, and I'm wondering if the community survey that our city auditor does each year could lend a hand in helping answer some of Councilman Byrd's questions.
I can talk with the accounting office and see, but I think he's really more talking about getting the people to respond to see if it's working, and also looking at the data. It's hard to complain if you haven't used it. And I hear you. So, Mr. Chair, if we could,
sure. Yeah,
I'd like for us to, okay, thank you. Councilman Ledford?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Over the past few years, my counterpart and I on the county commission hold community meetings 4 times a year. And I'm just trying to do some quick math at the average number of folks who attend that. And it's about 3,000 to 5,000 people over the past 15 meetings. These are folks who are engaged in the community, who come, who may not be tech savvy, and that's understandable. I would like to say my personal opinion is I don't think your survey represents District 4 at all. That's my personal opinion, and I bet you I've got several thousand people who will back that up. In those meetings over the past 4 years, I've not heard one person mention we need more mental health awareness. I've heard a lot about infrastructure, the horrible conditions of our roads, but mental health, although very important, I have not heard my constituents in District 4 ask for that to be a priority in the budget. Now, what's disappointing to me is that for the last 4 years, you have heard that from this council rep and other council reps who do represent the people in District 4. And that has been made a priority, yet mental health came in as your priority. I'm not impressed with the survey. I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's way off mark. I think it's geared and it's skewed to a specific demographic. And I think that's because it's COVID related. And I think that it's because it's protest related. And I don't think that it represents the values or the priorities, although it has some really good things in it. Let me be clear, really good things in it. I do not think that labeling mental health is the biggest priority for District 4. And to be honest with you, I'm disappointed.
Darren, that's interesting because I had that same conversation with Tyler because I felt like that we needed to look at what the demographic was. I was one of the 2 people that sat in on these. We missed the rest of you all. And that was my comment. I heard a lot of the same commentary as the George Floyd commentary that was being handled around that time. However, Tyler did introduce this with, please look at the source. So I don't think anybody disagrees with you on that. I wish more people had participated, but Tyler can speak for himself. So Tyler.
Sure. Yeah, this is a piece that you can use. These were real people who live in your district who participated. It's not everybody in your district, and you shouldn't take it away as representative. But you should, take it into account along with what happens at your resident meetings and everything else. This is just another tool in our toolbox, another thing for us to look at. And the people who are motivated to participate were the people who showed up. I wish I could have done the same thing for the 3,000 people that live in your district and get them to participate in these Zoom meetings and hear from them as well. But I didn't. But you know them, and you can judge for yourself what the priorities of your district are along with this.
I look forward to the opportunity to share those concerns and that input from my district with you during the budgeting process. Thank you.
Darren, how would you like to be able to share that at a meeting?
Well, I feel like I'm sharing it.
Meeting.
Yeah, I feel like I'm sharing it now, Councilwoman. I mean, you know,
We heard what you didn't like. I'm more interested in what your district does want. So,
well, I think that's fair.
okay. So maybe we can set up a time when there is more public discussion about that, right?
I agree.
Okay.
I agree very strongly because I think that COVID has given us a lot of hurdles. It has alienated a certain population that is not reaching. It has, I don't think we're hearing from everybody, and that concerns me greatly.
Okay, that's good commentary on the validity of the study. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. Councilman Byrd, I just want to say I felt that like 100% what you were saying, and also from Councilman Ledford. I think that, you know, for the past 3.5 years discussing the budget, it's important for council members to be a part of it from the beginning all the way through the end. And that's been my main concern, is because by the time we get the budget, it's in our wheelhouse. It's presented to us like it's urgent. We got to get it passed, and you know, X, Y, and Z. And I'm not really sure if the constituents' input is really being valued enough, and we're actually listening to it and inputting it in the budget, because it's the same things that are being funded. We know which systems and which priorities have not worked, but we still continue to fund those initiatives. We also, I gotta agree, like I just think that it's more, it was skewed to the voices of protesters, and I get it, they were kind of hot about it. And you know, I was too, it was a lot going on. We were acting in our emotions. But somebody should have took the time to say, hey, we have to really give some thought to this. My concern is the public safety, because our constituents often view public safety as if it's just associated with the police, and that's not so. We got lights, it's all kind of stuff that's in that police department budget that's not directly dealing with police, you know, with the Department of Police in its entirety, but our constituents don't understand that. Sidewalks, lights, you know, the infrastructure, paving, things that's clearly a public safety issue. I think that the pandemic, it pushed us in a whole different direction. It opened our eyes to the things that we are able to do outside of the no's that we've been given. It's just shaped us to where we you know, pushed us to want to address key things that's going to really help change the lives of a lot of our constituents, right? So we can talk all day about what's in the budget, you know, in different projects, but at the end of the day, and many of you been serving for years on council, people aren't going to remember that you got a road paved. They're not going to remember that we planted a tree. What they're going to remember is how you changed their life in a positive way. And I think we need to have in the budget, or strengthen a lot of departments to where we're truly addressing poverty, because right now we're just continue to put Band-Aid on it. And I really would like for us to move towards, we talk about it a lot, but equity is an issue. We have to start seeing it in the budget, so it'll be equitable and fair for every district. And we got to get away from, Tyler, and it is nothing personal when I say this, that if I made, you know, if it's a specific, you know, administrator that may not care for me, I'm cool with that. But at the end of the day, your dislike shouldn't affect the work that needs to be done in our districts. And we shouldn't have to continue to barter what's right for our constituents. We shouldn't have to, because the administration knows what needs to be done. We know the issues that need to be addressed in our district, and those issues continue to go overlooked a lot. And it's in the disparity, we see it. And I think, you know, those things we have to stop hiding our hand. Crime is going to continue to happen. And you know, we already know what that brings. And Councilwoman, I just, you know, I can't stress enough that it's very important for us to be on the front end. I know some may not agree with that. but we can't continue to operate on the back end because we don't have the time to go back and forth. And our role, according to the charter, is to legislate and to pass the budget. And I kind of feel like that we're forced in doing something that we may or may not agree on, simply because we're afraid, well, if I don't agree with it, then they're not going to give me that sidewalk, or they're not going to, you know, provide incentives to the businesses that need help, or we're not going to be able to recruit businesses for job opportunities. And it shouldn't boil down to that, Councilwoman. So I would just like to see some more changes. But again, I do thank you all for all the hard work that you do. I understand that a new administration is going to come in, so things, it may look totally different. I'm just very hopeful that, you know, the needs of the community will begin to get addressed.
So good points, Councilwoman. Tell me what, now we've gotten these meetings that the validity is questionable on. I hear that. Administration did what they did with the disclaimers that Tyler gave. I'd like some concrete things that you want to happen so that I can start working to try and make them happen. And I think I've heard a couple of you say something that sounds like a meeting where maybe it's a meeting like this, where you all individually get a chance to give your input or ask questions or whatever based on what you've heard from or not heard from the public meetings, what you've heard or not heard from your individual conversations with administration. Because you're right, our next thing to do officially is to approve or disapprove the budget. And you can't do that at the end. You've got to be being part of it at the beginning. So I really need from you all some concrete things that I can make happen that will satisfy that need. So who can help me here?
Well, I like, for starters, for the council, along with our attorney, to meet with our mayor, so he could talk to us about his priorities and we can talk to him about our priorities for our districts. I would like for that to happen with all of us, not separate, so we won't have to be put against each other, because I want, you know, each and every one of us to have the wishes and their desires for their districts. So I think we need to have that together. We need to be in conversations with our administration, all of us together, along with our attorney. That's what I would like to see happen. And
so meeting like this, a public meeting, but the purpose is this group conversation.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Other concrete examples of what you would like to see happen? Anyone?
Hey, Councilwoman?
Yes.
My apologies. I'm not able to raise my hand.
You're good. You're good.
I just wanted to, I mean, I could almost echo identically to my colleague over in District 4 and what Councilman Ledford was saying as well. I did hear Tyler at the very beginning of this talk about considering the source, and I did see that my district was the lowest number by far of representative input. So I don't want to use that number as disparaging to some of the results that came out, because a lot of what we see in this are issues that are incredibly important to citizens all over the city of Chattanooga and in every district. Everybody's concerned about what these issues are. It definitely is not representative of my district, what came out there. And I don't think that's any big secret. I mean, for 8 years, we've been talking about what is important in our districts. And for 8 years, some of us have been pushing really hard for all of those, every single budget. So, you know, this isn't as if we're suddenly trying to decide what's important for our districts. We've been having these conversations. This is not new. You know, and some of it, unfortunately, is just due to lack of understanding and knowledge of citizens in Chattanooga. You know, I hear situations where we need more affordable housing out of people in Bird's district. Well, most of them probably have no idea that there is more affordable housing units in District 8 thanks to the work that that Councilman Byrd has been doing than any other district in this city. They have no idea how much affordable housing he has worked to make available to the citizens in his district. Same thing, I could pick any person up here from the work that Councilman Ledford has done for infrastructure, that Councilman Mitchell has done. He's talked about earlier today about steep slopes. You know, these issues that are desperately in need of attention of our constituents, and none of that I feel is really showing up to the level of representation on this survey that you know we would like. But again, I agree with Councilman Ledford, with Councilwoman Coonrod, that I think it's representative of the time, it's representative of the emotion, it's representative of the state in which we live in. Of course, more people are going to be interested in jobs because they just lost a lot of jobs because of COVID. You know, of course, people are going to be devastated, significantly interested in mental illness because of how many problems we're having due to COVID, loss of job, things like that. These are all issues that need to be addressed. But I definitely would have to agree. It's far from representative of the high majority of people in my district personally. So what I would like to do, Councilwoman, you're asking for a solution. Yes, I'd love to have a meeting, not to have the budget read to us, but maybe we need a meeting of here's what is most important in my districts. And I don't mean one-on-one with the mayor. I mean, as a council, I think this is really important. All of these issues are important, don't get me wrong, but I didn't see, I mean, 90% of what I hear has to do with roads and infrastructure, 90%. And the rest is public safety. It's about speeding in neighborhoods. It's about signage. It's about how, education, what we can do with our kids at YFD centers here too. But that's 10%. The other 90% is roads. And not one of those showed up on this survey. There's no possible way. So I would love to have that conversation and properly prioritize those issues based on what the council who represents these people and works in those districts every single day is hearing from them. So this is not, please, Tyler, don't take this as a frustration to the survey. I love the work that you did and thank you so much for doing it. You could have just as easily said, sorry, not really that interested and move along. And you didn't do that. You know, you went out and you said, here's an opportunity. Give us the feedback. You say you want to give us feedback, give it to us. And you did that. So thank you very much for compiling all those results. It's just not enough representation throughout the entire city. And that's to the fault of every one of us and to the citizens that didn't give their input if they weren't heard. So it's not just Tyler ignoring our citizens. It's making the tool available. And these are the results that we got. I get it. But there's a lot more that I'm hearing that obviously was not put into this. So, I mean, that's all I'll say.
Do you agree with the idea of having a meeting, a public meeting like this, where administration listens to us saying what we feel is best for our districts, and that's our input? In other words, it's kind of lopsided now.
Yeah, I'm Councilwoman, I would welcome that at any time. Because again, we usually start these discussions when the budget is being presented to us.
And it should be happening now. It should be
we talk
happening
about it all year long. We come in
you're right.
every week and we say, hey, by the way, Blythe, where's the paving list? You know, what are the next roads? I need, you know, here's the problems that I have in my district. Every week, all year long, we have these discussions about what's important.
I know.
So maybe one meeting to compile them all to say, this is what we want to see in the budget. If you want me to vote for it.
That's where I'm going with that. We're going to Chairman Henderson. And Chip, one of the things that I've been thinking about is asking you as soon as possible, if we could schedule one of these things that's totally our input in the budget, based on our knowledge and our knowledge from our constituents.
Sure.
Just really open, honest conversation. Now let me tell you, we need to have it sooner rather than later, because they're starting to work on the budget. So I think it should be with the input from us as representing our folks, which is the other side of the coin of vested interest, which I think Darren was alluding to. So let me call on you now because you had some comments, but also if you could tell me when we can schedule this really quickly, that would be good.
Sure. So I think this probably is representative of individuals that's able to manage a Zoom meeting. But I've got to tell you, along with Vice Chair Smith and Councilman Ledford, when I saw affordable housing at the top as a concern for District 1, I wondered which district I had been representing for the last 8 years. But I get it. I get who is responding to those needs and concerns. Tyler, my question is really a process question. How far do you plan on bringing this budget along before you have to hand it off to the next administration?
Yes, that's a good one. This will be kind of a weird budget year than what we're used to in the past. And so what we are trying to do is have a prepared budget that we hand off to the new mayor and the new council to consider, and they can take that, they can edit it, they can do whatever they want to it, but we want to get it as far along the process as we can so they have something to work from. Because all of this stuff takes a long time to do. And so, you know, our process is going to be have all of the offers ranked and, you know, what we think needs to be funded, and then hand it off to the next administration to make the final decision.
So you're saying by April, you want to have all that together?
Yes, that's why we're underway right now and do this every budget cycle. And you know, results teams are already starting to look this month at those offers.
So this does give this council an opportunity, even the ones that are currently serving that won't actually get to have a vote in June on our budget. It gives them an opportunity to have some input into this process. So to answer, Councilwoman, I see this meeting being in a strategic planning meeting where we could just dedicate maybe perhaps the whole hour and a half, whatever we have for this type of discussion, so that as Tyler is putting all of these together, this input, we can, it can have a weighted value to it, so that the next administration understands this is the concerns coming from the actual council member that represents that district, which I can just about look on the screen and tell you what each council member at this time is concerned about and where they would like to see the funds placed. But let me get with our clerk, and I'll schedule, I'll just schedule this as quickly as I can during that strategic planning.
Mr. Chair, would you possibly consider a special strategic planning meeting dedicated just this? Time is of the essence because budget work is going on right now.
Well, now when you say a special, are you talking about on a day that we do not normally have strategic planning? Because
I would like my colleagues to have as much uninterrupted time as possible. I would like them to be able to ask the questions. I think Councilman Byrd had a really good question or a comment about, well, this sounds great, but how many people are really using it? You know, we funded this, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I think I would like to have a specially scheduled meeting that doesn't deal with anything else but that. And I would rather have it sooner or later. And I would rather my colleagues be not only make comments, but be able to ask questions, speak out, to get away from like innuendo and get real facts, because these are all serious issues. This information is going up online or is online now. And it's valid in that it was from the people who showed up. I get that. But from the looks on your faces, and by the way, I agree, it may not be reality for the district as a whole. And so I would like to do it as soon as possible with your permission.
If you're asking for a special call, we could obviously do it on the 26th of January. We have a regular scheduled strategic planning on the 19th and then the 2nd.
The 19th is fairly full. If my colleagues agree, I'd like to do it on the 26th. That also gives administration time to gather what they think they're going to need. And of course, it would be helpful if my colleagues, you've really got good questions, but if you would put them in writing so that we make sure that everything's addressed.
Let me ask a question. Does anyone know when our community survey will be coming out from the auditor?
The 2020 results are up on the website right now.
They're up now? Okay.
Yeah, they're out.
I haven't seen them. Okay.
And it's pretty much, again, and I'm just speaking from a research point of view, Mr. Chair, those things are just dependent on the people that respond. And you're right, everybody should take responsibility for responding. I think I'm hearing from my colleagues a deeper kind of response and discussion.
Well, so let me just ask it this way. Is there any objection to doing this on the 26th of January? Special strategic planning meeting.
No objection. Welcome the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Councilman Oglesby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like, because that is our regular scheduled meeting, I would like to suggest that we start earlier than the 2 o'clock time to really give us ample time, because often at our strategic planning meeting, when we have conversations like that, we tend to have to rush through the end of it. So if we could start maybe even like 12 or 1 to make sure that, we have enough dedicated time to have this discussion without rushing to our 3:30 meeting, I think that could be a really good thing.
It's a good suggestion.
1 o'clock would give us 2.5 hours.
Okay, and I'm good with 2 o'clock. I just think going at 2 o'clock to 3:30 is not going to do us any justice in having the meaningful conversations that I'm hearing now.
So from 1 to 3:30 on the 26th in a special scheduled meeting?
I think that would be great. If that's the chair and my colleagues on the council's support. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilman.
I'm not hearing any objections. So Madam Clerk, would you put that on the schedule and make sure that we notice that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. Anything else, Councilwoman?
No, sir. I turn it back to you.
All right, very well. I'm seeing nothing else on our agenda this afternoon. Is there anything else that needs to come before the council during this agenda session before we go into recess for our 6 o'clock meeting? Okay, I am seeing no hands. I'll see everyone back at 6 o'clock.
Very well. Thank you.